Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Michelle, and today I want to talk about the wilderness. Based on the scripture Exodus 13, verses 17, it reads as follows: When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through Philistine country, though that was shorter, for God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So, um, let's get to it. I wanted to first define what wilderness is. And then I just want to discuss what I wanted to share about the wilderness. The wilderness is defined usually as a large area of land that has never been developed or used for growing crops because it is difficult to live there. A wilderness area is one where it is not permitted to build houses or roads. It can also be defined as a place that people do not take care of or control. In politics, it is where a person is no longer in an important position. Mhm. From this definition, we understand that although the wilderness may be a place of discomfort, it is definitely a place where you pass through. It is not meant for a person to settle there, but a passage to a destination. You cannot be in the wilderness until you know where you are headed. Some people may mistake their Egypt for the wilderness and spend hundreds of years in the wrong place and mistake it for being in the wilderness. Um, Wilderness is meant to pass. It is also meant to be a place where you grow, learn, and improve, but most importantly, a place where you build character. It is also important to understand that each person's wilderness lasts as long as they are willing to be obedient. For you to go through the wilderness, you have to be different. You have to be the kind of person that is not afraid to stand out or stand up. If we look at the characters in the Bible who went through the wilderness, we can see a common factor about them. They were peculiar. Joseph was a dreamer who was sold by his brothers because of jealousy. He never stopped dreaming and interpreting his dreams from the pit to the palace. He knew who he was and he knew his purpose and that he will rise in position and his brothers would one day bow at his feet. He knew this and he made the mistake of telling his brothers. So, but he knew who he was. And although the situation favored him, he also resisted Potiphar's wife and landed in jail. But that did not stop him from being who he was created to be. He continued to serve in jail, interpreted dreams, talk about being bright in the corner where you are, you know? Joseph then became the prime minister of Egypt, and his brothers ended up really bowing at his feet. So, and we have another example, Moses. Moses, who killed an Egyptian for beating up a Hebrew, one of his own people. He also tried to mediate between two Hebrews fighting, and this was in his character. He knew in his heart that was what he was called for as a mediator for his people. Even after he fled to Midian, afraid of being killed by Pharaoh, by the well, he rescued the priests' daughters from the shepherds who were driving the flock away. And it was no surprise that Moses would become the mediator of Israel. in front of Pharaoh and God, because that's who he was, and that's who he became, and that's how he um, became one of the greatest prophets who ever lived. So he is one of those people who was peculiar, one of those people who had to go through wilderness to get to the promised land. Not the physical promised land, but in a sense of living his purpose. And then I wanted to make an example about David, a shepherd boy, anointed to be king at a young age, and he was not his father's favorite son. He did what any good shepherd does, protect the flock by killing anything that came before the flock. He went on to kill a lion, a bear, and even Goliath, who was defiling the name of God. Like a true shepherd, he fought for Israel and went through a lot of trials to a point of running for his life, because King Saul was ruler at the time, because he became jealous of David's victories. So he wanted him dead. But David would hide and run from Saul because he refused to kill an anointed man of God. David went on then to become king of Israel. The list goes on and on. However, the point is, the wilderness is tied to a purpose. Without a purpose, you cannot say just because you're going through hard times, you are in the wilderness. The wilderness is not meant as a punishment to humankind. It is a way of bringing humankind to its fullness, to your best self. A way to prepare. It is a way to prepare you for the blessings of your destination, with the understanding that with every promotion comes work. If you're a persistent person, you know no matter how hard life gets, you will still remain the same, and you won't allow situations or conditions to change you. That is how you build character, with consistency, whether you like it or not, whether you feel like it or not, and whether you you want to or not. You still do what you're called to do. You give when you have nothing left to give. You kill the lion when you know that it could kill you. You help the priest's daughters while you are on the run. The wilderness is basically a school to learn to live a purpose-driven life. Only when you pass, you can actually walk in the promised land. Don't be fooled. You cannot get the blessings if you don't pass the test. Some people actually die in the wilderness, sadly, if they aren't careful or aware of the challenges that set them up for the blessings. Some die because they refuse to leave what is behind. They continue to reminisce about a prison like Egypt and get stuck in the prison of their own minds and refuse to listen to what God has to say, even though He is the cloud by day and fire by night. Too blind to see that although you may live in a tent, provision is always at hand to cater for every need. The manna was there every day, but they still complained. Like the many Israelites who did not reach the promised land, today are many people who still refuse to listen or hear the call. People don't want to acquire knowledge. They make excuses, following crowds instead of finding the truth for themselves. They would rather die in prisons of poverty, impurity, blaspheming God and creating their own beliefs that they have no knowledge of its roots, because people would rather respond to lust or be in debt and slave away their whole lives working for someone who spends their lives on a holiday. Because according to the society we live in, that kind of slavery, that kind of slavery is actually called having security. How secure is it to live a life where you will retire at 65 years old with a lump sum that you will spend in less than 2 years? What about the legacy that you have to build for your children or your children's children? Are you not aware that money is supposed to work for you and not you work for it? When will our people realize the only way to be free indeed is if you live a life of abundance? John 10:10 says, "The thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." The life Jesus was talking about was a life he died for, a life of peace, purpose, and fulfillment. Not a mediocre life where you wake up, go to a job you don't even like, only to come back angry, tired, depressed, have dinner, and do it again the next day for the rest of your life. Let's look at definitions of what the word life and abundance really mean. Life means the ability to breathe, grow, and reproduce. It's the state of being alive, an individual's existence. So we understand that breathing is the ability to inhale and exhale air into your lungs. But do you know that the term to breathe life into something means to introduce new ideas and making people more interested? To grow, on the other hand, is to increase in size, number, or quality, and to develop skills. To reproduce is to make a copy of a picture, a piece of text. It is also to make something happen the same way. Being alive is to be full of emotions, excitement, and activity, to show interest. An individual is a separate entity, separate from a group. To exist is to be real, to be present in a place or situation. So that is one definition of life. And abundance is a large quantity that is more than enough. Large is something that is big in size. It can also mean something that is whole. It can also mean someone or an animal that is at large. That means they are free. Quantity is a number or an amount of while more is defined as a lot, continuing to be larger in number. Enough is used before plural or unaccountable nouns to mean as many or as much as needed or wanted. It means sufficient, also means to the necessary degree. Therefore, Jesus says he has come to enable you to breathe life into new ideas, make people more interested, grow in size and in number or quality, and develop skills, reproduce either your work or people in the same way you were produced, and be full of emotions and be real and present in places or situations, and continuing to be larger in number, as many or as much as needed or as much as you want to the necessary degree. You know, Jesus' wilderness lasted only 40 days, while the Israelites spent 40 years. The significance of this number is it is the number of sifting, to examine very carefully in order to decide what is important or useful, or to find important evidence. It is to remove that rather. Oh my goodness, my tongue. It is to remove that you do not want from a substance or to separate what you don't want from a group of things you need. So the wilderness is a time of sifting, and such a time has a beginning and an ending. It can never be more than a set time or less than a specific needed time. Just like Noah, the flood kept coming for 40 days. God was sifting what he needed from what he didn't want. The wilderness cannot be more than the time God has set for you. In order to be in the wilderness, you have to be led into it. It is involuntarily done by God Himself. When the time is right and God has made Himself known to you and has given you a vision or showed you the promised land or purpose and has told you His plan for your life and given you all the necessary tools and vision for where you're going, that is when you enter the wilderness. And at times, most of the time, the wilderness will feel like worse than Egypt, because you were so used to being enslaved in your poverty, in your mentality, in your lack, that you think when you're in the wilderness you are worse off. But the wilderness is designed to kill anything that could take you back to your Egypt. It is designed to cover the tracks so that you don't find your way back to your Egypt. It is designed to take you out of your comfort zone so that you can learn new things, new ways, and new ways of doing things with God. It is your school of character building. So you understand in your wilderness, this is a place where you learn to become who you were designed to be. It is a birthing place for character, knowing God, knowing His voice, and finally becoming His image, because the point is to have Him look at you and see Himself. So don't despise this period. Don't give up and don't lose hope. He will be with you till you get to the other side. Sometimes you're not going to feel Him near you, but He will be your cloud in the morning and your cloud of fire at night. He will be with you always. And remember this, how long your wilderness is depends entirely on you and your walk with God. I hope this helps someone. Till next time, to God be the glory.